Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome to E86 Tech Exchange webinar. I believe you all can hear me. So the E86 Limited Tech Exchange webinar is a recurring knowledge sharing session where industry experts come together to share insights about emerging technologies, current global trends, and essential digital skills that are needed in today's digital world. So it is E86 Tech Exchange webinar, and this is my humble self, Patricia Bassi, and I will be serving in the capacity of the moderator. It's an honor for me to be doing this. Okay, so we have amazing speakers this morning, wonderful speakers. We have Engineer Ayo Tomiwa. Good morning to you, sir.
Hi, good morning.
It's nice to have you on today's webinar session.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank
Can you hear me as well?
Understand.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. So we have Engineer Ayo Tomiwa present here as one of the panelists. The topic we're looking at for today's session is empowering. We're looking at empowering Africa's workforce for the AI era, and we're going to be identifying critical skills. We're going to be looking at roles, and as well, we're looking at certifications that really matter for, Okay, yeah, so we're going to be looking at that. So very quickly, I'm going to be reading the profile of Engineer Ayo Tomiwa. So stay with us. Engineer Ayo Tomiwa at Country. I hope I got that right, sir.
Yes, you did.
Thank you very much. Ayo Tomiwa is a nationally recognized energy leader and the CEO of QTech Nigeria Limited, with expertise spanning electrical engineering, hybrid power generation, power distribution, metering, renewable energy, and energy efficiency. He serves as a consultant to the Nigerian Army, Navy, and Air Force, delivering over 75 billion naira in savings through smart metering, hybrid solutions, and transparent energy accounting. He has advised most of the notable electricity distribution companies in Nigeria on metering, revenue protection, debt recovery, and distribution franchise rollout. Recently, he led the power system diagnostic and implementation of the state electricity market strategy and is currently supporting the office of the Vice President in shaping Nigeria's subnational electricity framework. That's interesting. He's certified by Koren and NIMSA. He has also participated in executive programs at MIT, Columbia, Dartmouth, UT Austin, and EIT Australia. Engineer Ayo Tomiwa is a pioneer in design thinking, strategic innovation, and energy systems transformation. At this point, I just want to give you a round of applause because you've done a massive work in your field, and that is so interesting and very, very recommendable. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we already know the topic we're looking at, empowering Africa's workforce for AI era. But before we go into the topic very quickly, I would just like you to give us a brief breakdown of artificial intelligence. You know, in the world today, Nigeria in particular, when you mention AI, people's mind goes boom, like, so just in a simple, in a simplified manner, just give us a breakdown of artificial intelligence.
So up to now, hello everyone, good morning. Trust everyone is well. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the lovely introductions. Okay, so in a nutshell, what is AI? Now, up till now, we had automation. Essentially, it has been the dream of anybody, any lazy person or any hardworking person, to have somebody else do the work. And that person could be a machine. And before now, what has come or what has been very popular is some form of automation or machine doing a task, for you. But artificial intelligence now layers another level where that thing can think for itself and make decisions, not just repeatedly doing the same task that it's given, if you understand what I mean. It's now able to collect or use data that has been collected, and then use that data to try and make uh, better decisions or the best or optimal decision wherever it finds itself. So that's what artificial intelligence is really. Artificial intelligence is really, the quality of data that you're able to gather, the right set of data put together, and then using that data to make intelligent decisions, making smart decisions, using training that data, using machine learning, to then use that data to make better decisions. So that's what in a nutshell is probably the easiest way I can describe artificial intelligence.
Yes, and thank you very much. You've really simplified it, honestly. Okay, so let's look at AI and the future of energy skills. As
Mhm.
someone transforming Nigeria's energy landscape, what critical skills do you believe that Africa's workforce must develop in order to meet the demands of an AI, enabled energy sector?
I mean, in today's power sector, the most valuable skill is not knowing everything, right? And that's just the truth. But it's knowing how to ask AI the right questions. So prompt engineering, in my opinion, is probably one of the most important skills to learn at the moment. And I've seen this even happen in different spaces, even in my office, for example. You give different people the same task, but then they're able to come back with, different results, and it's essentially the same task. So you can see that, asking AI the right questions is very important. But beyond this, prompt engineering, another thing that is extremely important is data literacy, right?
Mm.
Um, that's very important, because in energy, data is probably the new crude oil. Do you understand? And it is unlike crude oil, data is very untapped in Nigeria, right? So data is the new gold mine. So understanding data, and again, this is something that is usually said a lot in Nigeria, where things that you learn in school, people then are asking, how do you apply those things? How do you apply those things? Those things are not applicable. Where will I use differentiation? Where will I use, all of those things? I don't know if you've heard things like that said that, when will I use dy/dx? Where will I use, there's nothing in my day-to-day life you get, but if anyone here is still in secondary school or in university at the moment, take statistics very seriously, right? Because a lot of the work that you would do in data, you know, so math and statistics are going to be very important, subjects that you need to focus on, then learning how to, use AI assisted platforms, right, is very important because it's going to differentiate you, right? Because the quality of work that I'm able to churn out using AI assisted programs or softwares or platforms will be better than yours, right? Especially if I'm then very good with prompt engineering, right? And of course, cloud and automation fluency is very important because these are things that, will change the landscape, right? Combining human. So again, you, you, if both of us had and I'm assuming that you're not an electrical engineer, right? But if we were given the same task to do as an electrical engineer, There's no way you're going to be able to come back with a better result than I mean, hopefully not, because that would just be embarrassing if if you came back with a better. And why is that so? Because you probably will not be able to. You don't have the background. You don't know what the right questions to ask AI is. And even if AI gave you a set of instructions, right? You might not be able to follow it or might not understand how to follow it. So that's not discounting, the background that you need to have, right? No matter how much AI I now to use, I doubt I'll be able to fly an airplane right now. So it means that I still have to go through that rigor of going to, a school to train as a pilot, and then using AI then become makes me a better pilot, if you understand what I mean. So you get, and of course cloud and automation fluency is very important, because then you're in terms of my specific area, which is grid automation and things like that. And I give this example earlier. There's something that I do with my home inverter and my office inverter, right? Before we introduced AI to those inverters, I used to control the dispatch. So when to use sun, when to use battery, when to use the grid, and when to turn on my generator. And, when I switched to AI did it at least 35% better than I did, and actually even resulted to about 45% of cost savings. So you see why, you, uh, you have to work hand in hand with AI and automation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for that very simplified and a very clear explanation and answer to the question. Okay, before we move on to the next question, I would like to recognize the two auditors that we have here that makes up the panelists. I have Dr. Ibukun Aino. It's nice to have you here, sir. Good morning. Dr. Aino Ibukun, good morning.
Yes, good morning. It's nice to be here. Thank you very much.
Yes. How's the weather over there where you are?
It's so chilly, honestly.
I can see from here. I can see that from here.
Yeah.
Nice
you.
to have you. Nice to have you, sir.
Right.
Let's also recognize Miss Thelma. We have Miss Thelma Ibe, the CEO of FMR Agency. Good morning to you, Ma.
Hello, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. It's nice to have you on this webinar session.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so before I move on to the next question, I would just like to give us a rundown of the other two panelists that we have right here. We have Dr. Aino Ibukun Isaac. He's a PhD holder in mathematics, a seasoned business and data analyst, and a visionary tech entrepreneur with extensive experience across both local and international markets. With a strong foundation in data-driven decision-making and problem-solving, Dr. Aino has worked across diverse industries, helping organizations leverage analytics and technology to drive impactful outcomes. Dr. Aino is the founder of Smart Approaches, a dynamic UK tech company that operates at the intersection of education and innovation. The company delivers practical, scalable learning solutions through its EdTech arm, while also offering cutting-edge software development services tailored to real-world business needs. Dr. Aino is also the founder of Guide, an innovative mobile and web app that connects individuals with trusted and verified service providers, offering a seamless, real-time solution for assessing services across various categories. With a passion for innovation, inclusion, and community impact, Dr. Aino continues to lead transformative projects that bridge gaps, empower people, and shape the future of digital solutions. Dr. Aino, very quickly, I'm just going to ask, how do you do this? How do you do all of this? It's amazing.
Thank you so much. Just dedication and true prayer from our parents like you. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'll move to the profile of Ms. Thelma right now. So Ms. Thelma Ibe is the CEO of FMR Agency, an accomplished human resource professional with a wealth of experience in various HR roles. As an employment coach and leader, she has a remarkable ability to attract and manage top-tier talent, consistently striving to build the most efficient and effective workforce. Throughout her career, she has contributed significantly to renowned organizations, both as an employee and a consultant. Thelma's extensive experience spans a wide range of HR functions, making her highly versatile and acknowledgeable in overseeing the daily operations of both small businesses and large corporations. Her expertise includes developing HR strategies, recruitment, HR outsourcing, business partnering, performance management, HR audit, organizational structuring and restructuring, learning and development, organizational development, policy development and implementation, and cultural change. She holds a master's degree in international relations. She holds a master's degree in international relations from Coventry University as a licensed global leader by the Center for Global Engagement at Coventry University. Currently, Thelma serves as a valuable member of several advisory boards, including Genesis Energy Group and TechHer Africa. In addition, she holds the role of director at Fastlearn Africa, an innovative online marketplace for knowledge acquisition. Thelma's dedication and expertise have earned her significant recognition, including being listed among the top 50 HR professionals in Nigeria by LinkedIn. Under her leadership, FMR agency was honored with the Most Trusted HR Management Partner 2022 award at the African Excellence Awards, a testament to her commitment to excellence and client satisfaction. Ms. Thelma, let me use the Nigerian language.
Thank you very much.
Hot soup for me now.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well done. You deserve a round of applause for your excellent work so far, and it's an honor to have you right here on this webinar session.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I'll be coming back to you very soon to ask you your question, but very quickly, let me head back to Mr. Ayotomiwa. Hello, sir. Are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So now, well, you gave us an answer in respect to AI and the future of energy skills. And one thing you mentioned that actually, got me attracted was when you mentioned prompt engineering, because we're in a time where many people, even young people, want to use AI. Let's use chat, for instance, but they do not know the right prompts to use in certain cases. So it's very good that you were able to break that down for us, and we appreciate that. Now we're going to look at AI in power generation and distribution. AI in power generation and distribution. And for someone who has worked extensively in hybrid power generation, power distribution, and metering, how is AI reshaping these areas today, and what new job roles are emerging as a result?
Thank you. Just like how NEPA secretly takes your light, AI has also crept into the energy sector. And in power and distribution and transmission, it's core. So let me just for those who may not understand how this works, I'll just do a quick introduction. So one of the major parts of power generation, transmission, and distribution is what we call load balancing or grid stabilization. And what does that mean? I need to balance my generation with consumption. Consumption is the people using the electricity, and generation is the guys who are actually creating the power. And when there's a mismatch, there's a problem on the grid. And that problem is usually called, it could be a partial grid collapse or a total grid collapse. To maybe visualize this very correctly, I don't know if you remember this small generator, blue generator. It was called the Tiger generator. We used to call it I Pass My Neighbor generator. Right?
Yeah.
So you have your I Pass My Neighbor generator, and then you've decided to turn on, all the ACs of your house. What happens? You'd hear their pass my generator, and then it goes off, it trips off, right? So that's what happens essentially when too many people turn on their lights all at once, right? And then generation cannot meet up, right? And then when you're generating too much, so for example, maybe in a small BQ, you have decided to go and bring, those big generators, those big diesel generators to power a small hut as well. You can see that, you're going to be wasting a lot of fuel. It's going to be too loud. There's just going to be a lot of problems with voltage stabilization and things like that. And you'd agree with me that consumption, again, I don't know what you're doing in your house at the moment. I don't even know where you live at the moment. I don't know how many light bulbs are on at the moment. I don't know what your neighbor is doing. Do you understand? And there's an interesting story that even brings this to play. In the UK, there was this very important interesting TV show that was on, and a lot of people in the UK were watching it. And during the commercial, a lot of people in the UK would go put on, their electric kettle just to make tea, to make tea. And then, during the commercial, you get it. And for the power company, they started to have problems because, especially when they had things like the season finale and things like that, right? The grid was stripped off because a lot of people want to make tea about the same time, because the commercial came on, everybody was watching a live show, and then they went to make tea all at the same time. And then, there was a grid collapse even in the UK, So how does AI help with this? AI would learn, everybody's consumption, pass that information to the utility, right? And then we can dispatch energy to meet, so we understand when we need to ramp down on energy, on power generation, and when we need to aggressively ramp up, and when to keep it, and you would agree with me that it's a bit difficult for humans to do this, efficiently, right? So this is what thing that would, AI would be very useful for predicting feeder overload before it happens. It's very important, especially in a country like Nigeria when, there's a lot of collapse, right? So before even an outage, and, I would like to also use this medium to correct a notion. A lot of Nigerians think there's a giant switch in NEPA's office, do you get? And then when we're having too much fun, somebody turns it off, right? So that's not the case. Nobody's doing that. What happens really is that certain conditions happen, and then either the device fails, or there's an overload, or there's a short circuit, or there's a fault somewhere. It could even be a drunk driver, right? And how do you predict or know anything about these things, right? So, predicting feeder overload, or predicting when an outage is likely to occur is, where AI is very important. Also, dispatch of energy. It could be a battery source, it could be a solar source, it could be gas and things like that, Also, which is very important in countries like Nigeria and in Africa, a lot of our problems in Nigeria, in the sector is it's a liquidity problem. And why do we find ourselves in this liquidity problem? It's a financial liquidity problem. It's because most of the country, they're stealing energy, right? AI is going to be able to help with that as well. When people are stealing energy, AI is able to tell us, oh, you know what, this person is stealing energy, right? Or this person is likely to steal energy, or there is a need for reconciliation, So again, could help even with the liquidity and financial problems that we have in our sector at the moment, right? When a meter is tampered, AI is able to tell us that this meter is tampered and it's not reading, data consistently. So the second part of the questions, what are the new roles that are available? A smart grid analyst, would be extremely important, an AI-enabled maintenance engineer. And I'd like to dwell with this on this a bit more. Currently, when there's a fault, actually, we spend a lot of time trying to find where the fault is, right? And you would see when you're driving, especially across town and things like that, you see that wires go from different places into bushes and things like that, right? So finding where that fault is a major part. So for example, it might actually take us 30 minutes to fix the fault, but it takes us 5 hours to find that fault. Now, AI is going to be able to help with that. And, an AI-enabled maintenance engineer. So for example, he has on his device, okay, this is the path where we have a fault, and it goes straight to that place to go fix it. So you reduce the downtime, and of course you make more money, because every downtime that you have, the utility company is actually losing money. So instead of 5 hours of losing money, it then comes down to maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes of losing money. So you can see how that also helps, you know. So smart metering, smart data metering specialist, AI-enabled maintenance engineers, smart grid analysts, which are essentially data analysts that are trained, you know, to understand data that's coming from the grid. I believe new roles that I imagine from this new sector.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that response. Okay, let's have Dr. Ibukun. I know it's time to have you speak. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me,
Okay.
please?
Yes, I can hear you. So a very quick one to all our participants. The chat box is there for you to drop your questions, your suggestions, or observations. Please do that in the chat box. Thank you very much. Okay, Dr. Aino, let's look at the foundational skills for the AI era. With your strong background in mathematics and data analytics, you understand the backbone of AI more than most people. From your experience, what foundational skills, either technical or non-technical or even both, do you believe Africans must prioritize to remain competitive as the world becomes increasingly AI driven?
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for this privilege, and good morning, everyone. Oh, I would like to say that there are two major skills that you need to have if you want to really make use of this AI era. And the first one is the technical and the non-technical. So I'll start with the non-technical. One thing is to have the AI tool. Another thing is to know how to use it. The another thing is to be able to adapt. So AI is one of the most exponentially increasing technology. The rate at which it's growing is very alarming. So it's to even catch up, it's a lot of stress. So you need to be able to catch up at every time. So we've had different versions of ChatGPT now. And that same ChatGPT is a bedrock for so many AI tools out there. So if ChatGPT is down right now, a lot of AI tools is not going to work because they are using the API. So API is called Application Programming Interface. That is, you can connect with ChatGPT and pay ChatGPT some amount of money, and I'll be able to use your tools inside my application. So now you need to have the right skills. And the first one is adaptability. You should be able to go with it, because right now, if you're thinking the way you used AI last year or last 2 years or 2022 when it came, you might be wrong right now, because there's now deep search. So before, AI doesn't do images, but right now there are a lot of things that you will have a beautiful video more realistic than a real live video, because AI has grown. So you need to understand that, and you need to have that skill as an individual that want to do well in this era of AI. And if you think it will go, you might eventually go before the AI, because it is ready to stay permanently. And big companies are adopting it. United States of America is spending billions of dollars on AI. Unfortunately, I cannot really say about Nigeria, but I know about the United States, which is definitely the one who's really the tech world in the entire world. So another thing you need to know is you need to have the critical thinking. Critical thinking in the sense that, just like me and Mr. Tomiwa can have the same AI tool, have the same problem we want to solve, but different prompts. We have different answer, and one will be more perfect than the other. Just about few minutes ago, I have a learner in one of the universities in the United Kingdom. She submitted her assignment with a university. She's been using AI to do the assignment. She had her first degree. She's been using AI, now her second degree. And trust me, one of the assignments she failed this morning. And when she sent it to me, I was like, how did you do? She said, I've been using the same AI. And I said, what are your prompts? So it means, and the report she got from that assignment was, what you gave us is totally different from what we asked it. So it's not like plagiarism. It's not like they said you brought it from AI. It is just that AI interpreted it in a different way. Unfortunately, you don't have much knowledge about that particular course or that particular module, then you failed. Just like if I should ask Mr. Tomiwa now, who is Mr. Tomiwa? If I say AI, who is Mr. Tomiwa? Are they council?
Are they council?
You will definitely go to the internet and bring what Mr. Adekansi has brought there. And that is what I'm going to adapt. But Mr. Adekansi's French, we understand that. Are you sure this is the Adekansi? I know, because there might be so many Adekansi into electricity and engineering and all of that. So now you need to know how to have your quantitative reasoning and critical reasoning in order to be able to use that AI perfectly well. Because AI can kill. I'm sorry, I'm saying this. AI can make all what you have done wrong, and it can give you the best type of solutions you could ever think of, because it thinks faster than human. So now, I think I've been able to say adaptability and critical thinking for non-technical skills. Now, the technical skills. Unlike before, everyone was running away from mathematics. I'm proud to be a mathematician at PhD level. Trust me, if you don't know maths now, you might struggle to live life later. And I believe Mr. Ayotomiwa can also attest to that. Because a lot of people say, I'm sorry, I'm in art class, because I don't want to do maths. I'm sorry if that is getting to you. Yeah, just take it like that. Because the life is changing. You need to be able to adopt the new system. You don't really need to know too much of algebra, topology, numerical analysis. You don't need to go so deep. But the basic mathematics, the concept of how some basic things works, and statistics, unlike before that any business enterprise, we just think we want to have a new feature on our app, take for instance, or we want to have a new product, and let's try it. Life has grown beyond trying by error. Now, let's collect data. There are a lot of requirement gathering techniques right now, from interview to questionnaire to observation. All of them will come with data. And now, for every organization, I've got an app or a database where they fetch their data, and you can collect that sample data, analyze it, and be able to predict your business and make right business decisions. If you are not doing that right now as a business, you are just taking more risk, because things have changed. So now, every individual must have the data literacy, understand basic data, statistics, and mathematics concepts in your daily activity. So it means that you don't really need to go so deep about mathematics, but understand the basic. So that means mathematics foundation or understanding or concepts. Then also you need to have there's in mathematics that we have different type of mathematics. There are some that are business mathematics. So if you are trying to have a business or start a business or a startup, I think you need to think about the mathematical and statistical part of it in order to reduce risk, in order to be able to predict your customers. There's what we call user personas in business analysis, where you'll be able to predict the kind of products your users will need. Take, for instance, if I want to build an app that is going to have a meeting, I need to think that is going to host a meeting like this. I need to think about the AI nodes, new features. Then think about if I want to start a company, take for instance, Uber company or any riding or whatever kind of company that's doing a taxi in Nigeria, is definitely going to be different from the way I would do it in the UK. Because in the UK right now, everybody wants to either take a taxi or take a bus. Unlike before, UK people like to walk. They were just like, it's not far. I just want to walk. Just take a walk. It's not far. Everything is not far. But right now, everything is far because it's cold. So you need to think that, okay, there will be peak time, a lot of peak time this time. So this is time to increase your data, increase your price. How do you get that? Through data. I can't just increase it by maybe 1%, 2%. You need to have a past time. That is, have a set of data you have used in last year, 2 years, and be able to say, so by December, if we increase it by 10%, by January, we can make it by, so you make it so exact. So I want to believe that data literacy and basic mathematical understanding will help you to be able to do well in this era of AI. Thank you.
So in essence, if I have a basic understanding of mathematics, I'm good to go in the AI era.
Definitely, yes.
Okay, thank you so much for your response. Miss Thelma, I would like you to add to what Miss Dr. Aino has just said in respect to skills. He has, spoken from the area of a mathematician and a data analytics. I need you to add from your area as a human resource specialist. What would you say, give us the skills, critical skills you believe will define employability in Africa over the next decade?
Okay. Thank you again. So let me just start with what has been happening. By 2030, Africa is going to be the digital skill providers for, globally, which means that a lot of countries and other continents would be hiring off Africa. Like we usually say, Africa is not completely innovating, neither are we producing. So the only place we can leverage our skills is to, grow them to be able to support. And so that's already evident. And if you really look at the path that Africa is taking, you'd see that, a lot of young people are just focusing on growing themselves. So having said that, the top skills are definitely, digital literacy, obviously, because that's what we are pushing in Africa. Everybody has to be digitally literate. Everybody has to be tech top, because there's nothing you want to do in today's organization that would not require some form of, digital skills. Either you're sending an email, either you're using Excel, either you're using prompts, just like we're saying here, using the right prompts. Before now, using ChatGPT and Gemini, we're like, oh, when you use that, people are like, oh, why are you using that? But today in organizations, you're being encouraged to use that because people don't want to have errors in their, of course, as long as you're doing that intelligently and you're reading. So that goes a long way. So what I would say is digital literacy skills, obviously, because we have to better position ourselves to continue to be that digital providers that we want to be. I think with the whole thing about AI technology coming up, I feel like cybersecurity is a very important phase because that's where we're gradually drafting into, where there are a lot of fraud, people are losing access to data, people are, a lot of, so I think that's going to be the next pandemic, right, that we're going to have. So it's not about building up the tech, it's about, the risk that comes with it. So I think cybersecurity skills is a very important area that people around here have to also build skills on. I think, like you said, I think he has said most of them. Process automation, cloud, what do you call it?
Cloud engineering.
Cloud computing.
Yes, exactly. Because again, I think this whole thing about Web3, which we're also experiencing, right? So it's going to be, there's just a lot going on, a lot. And just like you said, every day there's new modified technology that's coming up, and it's just like we have to move at speed. And I think you mentioned analytics, because definitely we have to analyze every single data. So I think those are the area. However, as an HR person, I cannot talk about skills without talking about the soft skills, the human skills part, because no matter how technical you think you are, your human skills are actually what will help you, manage things better. When we talk about prompting, example, critical thinking is important, right? Gemini and DeepSeek can give you a response, but you also have to think critically. Does this actually reflect to what I want to achieve, right? So critical thinking is important. We have to question everything, even though we have free access now, even though we can now get information. But when we get that, we have to critically analyze, and really think about the response. Does it drive the point that I want to make? Does it solve the problem that I'm looking to solve? Communication is very key, especially when we're moving to the tech space. From my experience managing a lot of tech teams, the problem I've had mostly is that I have a lot of technical guys who are very good, but I don't find leaders, right? I don't find leaders in them simply because because you work remotely, you work on your own. So the field is just about technical skills. They don't know how to work in a team. They don't know how to communicate. They don't know how to lead. They don't know how to solve problems like I'm not talking about technical problems. They solve that. But in terms of having conflicts with people, being adaptable, imagine when you tell somebody who has been working remotely for 5 years to come into an office for 1 week, like they're already frustrated. They can't
Feels
fit into the
strange.
environment. They can't fit into the environment. They can't have conversations. It's just as if they're losing their life. So I think it's also important that you're learning those skills. You still have to grow your communication skills. And communication, there are 4 facets of communication. One is listening. One is speaking. The other one is writing. And then the other one is reading, right? So that's all 4 of them. And the one that is most critical in the workplace, I mean, all of them are most critical, but listening is also very critical, right? So we have to grow our listening skills, our speaking, what we say, and how we say it is also very important. Then emotional intelligence. Again, I say that in Africa, especially Nigeria, we're very emotional people. We speak from how that we feel, not about facts, Oh, I've been in the company for 5 years. Why would it doesn't work like that. Like, you need to know that certain things are not about emotions. Do you understand? It's about real facts. You made a mistake that's costing the company a lot of money. So if they are suspending you for that, that is the core reason why they are suspending you. Trying to, put in the fact that, oh, I've been in the company for 5 years. I do not deserve to go on suspension because the company lost $2 million. Really? Do you understand? So we have to be emotionally intelligent, like know how to soak in. Know that people come from. Looking at our environment, I really would have thought that Nigeria would actually know how to manage their emotions very well because we have like over 200 languages. We have different cultures. So you don't have everybody thinking the same. Or like when you go to the US where people already have they speak the same language. So it's like you expect the same thing from everybody. But here, you realize that you're working with different people from different ethnic groups, from different cultures. For example, I'll use the typical food thing. I'm Igbo, right? I've seen amala, right? It's not something I think I can eat. That's because, that's my thought where I'm coming from. But I cannot see that somebody's eating that food and I'm like, oh my God, what the hell are you eating? Right? So that means that I have to recognize that other people have their cultures, have their communication style, and I have to be able to set that boundary. So emotional intelligence refers to, knowing how to manage your own emotions and the emotions of other people, and understanding that, yes, and then understanding that, yes, we're at work, we are one family at work, but not exactly, right? We are one family to get the goal. That's the goal of the business done, not for your personal activities. And then problem solving. Everybody wants to problem solve. We don't want to keep telling you to do the same thing or having to check on you and everything. So you have to know how to really solve problems. Like try to solve problems on your own. When you don't, then you can now ask, escalate to the next person. So yeah, I think these are some of the skills. There are lots of them if I keep talking about. Yeah, these are for me are very, very, very key.
Thank you very much thank you so much for the breakdowns. When you talked about the cultural differences, I wanted to, the fact that we have different beliefs, we're from different backgrounds, ethnicity. I think somehow there's this statement that we say, don't let Nigeria happen to you in a kind of negative way. I think that's one of the things that the challenges that we're currently facing. Thank you so much for that breakdown. I'm also going to ask you this real quick. As a seasoned HR leader, how do you see the HR function evolving in response to AI adoption across industries? And what strategic shifts must HR professionals make to prepare Africa's workforce for an AI-driven future?
I think we're already at that point, right? We're already at that point where HR has, moved to AI-driven practices. However, I feel like we've not done a lot of policies like ethics. I think while we're adopting AI, a lot of organizations have not really sat down to write their AI ethics policies, right? That people must follow because they're also very, very critical. Using the simplest one, for example, that we have is when you give ChatGPT a prompt and then it tells you, oh, here is a refined whatever of what you want to use, right? Some people do not even look, they copy everything. Even though you were trying to copy whatever, it's possible you must have copied everything and you pasted and then you sent and it gets to the next person. So it's not even only with employees. I've also seen business leaders who actually used AI and also forgot to do that, right? So I feel like we need to do more in terms of creating our AI ethics policies so people know where and how to use it. I think we need to be able to have that so people understand how they use it in order not to. Remember, ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek has a lot of information about companies. I'm even scared for my own organization, right? Because people just copy and paste. They copy confidential information. They copy both email addresses and phone numbers that, so there are a lot of confidential information out there on some of these platforms. So I think AI ethics policy is something that, HR professionals would definitely have to look into ensuring that the organization have that as well. I think data privacy, I think they all both, go hand in hand. Data privacy policy, following our own data privacy laws, is something that we also have to educate people about. I think we're already using AI for a lot of things. Today, AI does the screening for us, does the talent sourcing. Where I have a problem, does the skill prediction. Where I have a problem, even though I've tried to use that, is AI interviews. So for example, I've used a technology that allows people to interview with AI, ask them questions, take their body language, take some information that they have shared, and then use that to, come up with a report and then recommend candidates to me. So in all of that, as we're using AI, in all of it, we must also understand the human element, because I've had situations where this AI does the shortlisting for me, and when I got those candidates and I really met them in real person, they weren't the best, even though AI tried to do its own best. And then sometimes we are also, even though we encourage people to make sure that their CVs are properly written, but there are great candidates that it doesn't tell on their CV. So because they've not used the right prompts, you can miss them out. And then finally, at the end of the day, they may also be the right candidate. So I feel that while we should use that for our screening, our sourcing, today you just put the role that you want to hire and the location, and then AI goes and scouts for people who have that same experience, working in that same industry, and then it pulls that to you. So I think that's a very good step in terms of sourcing. It also helps us with skill prediction as well. And then behavioral, patterns and all that. So it can give you all of that. And I think that's what, a lot of HR professionals are currently doing today. So I feel that maybe those are the areas why we continue ensuring that the human touch is there, which is assessing the cultural fit, because AI cannot access your cultural fit, right? So you have to be able to, do that yourself based on your structure. So let AI handle the data, and then we as human beings, the HR, always, make sure that the touch of human is also being reflected. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your response, Ms. Thelma. Let's move over to Engineer Ayotomiwa. You've been sitting pretty and smiling all through. Okay, so I believe you've been enjoying the sessions, and I believe that our participants have been gaining a lot so far from today's session. Okay. We want to look at workforce readiness in the energy industry. So based on your experience advising the military and electricity distribution companies, how prepared is Nigeria's current workforce for the digital transformation happening across the power sector?
That's a really good question. To be honest, I feel like half the workforce is saying what is AI, or not able to use AI in its full glory, if you're allowed to use that word. And the others are very worried that AI is going to take their job. So I think that we're somewhere in between. Again, it's a bit difficult for the workforce in Nigeria, and maybe indeed in Africa, because the backbone of AI is data. And I'll just comment a bit on what Ms. Thelma was saying, about how the AI report might seem like this guy is a good fit, but then when you meet the guy, you're like, this is not a good fit.
The way around,
right? It's the other way around. Again, it goes to that platform. How was it trained? So, for example, if it was trained by the Chinese, they don't have the same kind of gestures that we have, or an American. They don't speak the same way that we do, their body languages and things like that. So if, for example, you then take, and even within Nigeria, it's the same thing. You train a data with Hausa Fulani, and you then, use it on a Yoruba person, you might find that the results would not be as accurate, right? So I said that to say that, the workforce too is not solely their fault, right? One of the major problems that we had working with the military was that the data was not available or was very fragmented. A lot of work had to go into putting that data together, from paper-based, getting them, into data entry, data cleaning was a lot of and we're still doing that actually, we're still doing that. Collecting data from across the country is extremely, extremely, extremely difficult. Getting people to use very simple tools to be able to input that data, so I would not put the fault solely on the workforce, and perhaps maybe this is a policy problem as well, in the country, where a lot of things are still very paper-based, right? I remember one of the very funny encounters that I had, so I asked for a particular set of data, and I was taken to an abandoned toilet where they had, so they had a store where they keep a lot of paperwork, filing systems and things like that, and they had run out of space, so they had just converted like a toilet, that was not being used anymore, and that's where they were storing the stuff. And I remember just standing in front. I didn't even want to go into the place because I was just wondering, where will I start from? Finding that, so if you don't have data, right, there's nothing like AI, right? So again, digitalizing all of these things is a lot of the work that has to be done, and getting the training, letting people understand how to use AI, getting trainings, maybe grants, because again, a lot of people fall below the poverty line, so might not be able to get the acquired skills that they need. So, maybe government intervening with providing institutions or grants for people to be able to learn very quickly, is how I would, judge our readiness for it. And I mean, that would be my own thoughts around that question.
Okay, so let's put it, let me put it this way. What you've said, we want to, give it like a percentage. What percentage will you give us?
And it's not the fault of the workforce, right, that they will get an F, right? But maybe 35%. Because again, like I said, so for example, I hire you to my office and all my data is stored in the toilet in some old paper. What are you going to be able to do? Do you understand? Versus I brought you into a Microsoft-like office and everything is on a server, digitalized already. Do you get? So
stored and saved and secured.
Do you get what I'm saying? So all you're doing is maybe downloading CSV files and then importing them into maybe a no-code tool. Do you get? Or using Python to interact. How do you use Python to interact with data in the toilet on a paper-based toilet? Do you understand? So that's why we're scoring poorly. Do you understand? So there's a lot of problems along that value chain. Again, especially in the energy sector, we have a lot of elderly people in the sector. So a lot of the NEPA people are still with us in the sector. Some of the best hands in quote, in quote, and I use air quotes because our grid, for example, is outdated. So an elderly person who has worked with transformers, feeders, protection devices that were built in the 70s would of course know how to use that better than I do. Do you understand? Because again, that's not what I mean. There were analog systems, and they take a lot of pride in knowing how to use and being the only ones knowing how to use and can solve that problem. Do you get? Whereas I can just flip out those systems to more modern systems, automated systems, write a short Python code, and I'll make that gentleman obsolete. Do you get what I'm saying? So you see that it's a difficult question to answer. And the fact that we're doing very poorly is not solely because of the workforce itself. Do you understand? But again, the infrastructure, the environment they find themselves in, and the cultural problems that we have.
Thank you very much. That's quite interesting. Let's move let's move over to Dr. Aino. Very quickly, I just want to ask, do you agree with Engineer Ayotomiwa on that ratings that he gave us, the 35%?
Well, I think if you are quite exposed to the Western world, 45 is way too much, honestly. Yeah.
Okay.
Recently, the United Kingdom switched from their BRP, British Residential Permit, which was on card, to strictly online, like e-visa. It means that if that server is down for 30 seconds, nobody's going to be able to enter UK from all over the world. Like you can see the magnitude of how much they are putting into tech and AI and all of that. So I'm not sure. I think recently our passport in Nigeria just became a bit more visible in the digital environment. Now you can scan it and see what it has a chip now, the recent one. So we are growing, right? But the growth is a bit so slow because we are quite traditional in Nigeria. We don't really want to leave the old system, just like you said, because most of our leaders are old people and they believe that is how it is, that's how it's working. And in most cases, when something is working in Africa, then we feel like, why do we want to change it? But unlike the Western world, that they don't always believe that everything is working well. They believe at every time there's always a better version of what they are doing. Recently, some days ago, they just changed the immigration law again. Why? Because they analyzed the data and they realized that in the next 2-3 years, about 1.7 million immigrants are going to be British and they cannot afford it. So that's the effect of the data. But in Nigeria, do we even know the population? Not to talk of some other things. So it's a bit so difficult, just like you said, to change the narrative. But the good thing is the youth are really embracing AI and all and technology. You understand? So when we are talking about technology now, we need to focus on the youths more because the aged one are not receiving it the way we are receiving it. So I believe if we are going to categorize it or give it a status, like in tech, status means category. We have different status. When we group it at age 18 to like 35, 40, I can say we are 70% ready, honestly. But when we generalize it, because the age 45 or 50 to 80,
the age bracket,
they are about 7% ready. So now when you add it to about 75, so when you find the average, we are low already. You understand? So, but I want to believe that we are also growing. I need to say that we are adapting and we are adopting the system so fast in Africa youth environment. And that's why most of the tech funders are young guys. You hardly see an old person to be a tech funder in Africa because in the first place, do they really believe in that concept? They are just adapting. You understand? So, but things are changing. I want to believe that the youth of now, either we want it or not, will later be the old of tomorrow. So maybe by then we'll be able to use it very well.
Skills.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, with what you've said, I think that one of the things one of the challenges we're having is the skill gaps. So this brings me to the next question that I have for you. You know, with what you've done you've worked across both local and international markets. Based on what you've seen, what are the most significant, skill gaps among African professionals entering AI, data, or digital roles? And why do these gaps persist?
Thank you so much. We have a lot of gaps. I'll just dwell on just about few.
Yeah.
One of the major problems we have in Africa is funding, because a very reasonable percentage of us are poor. Not just on paper, but in reality. I'm not talking about World Health rating, UN rating, US rating. Reality, go to the streets and see how people are really struggling to eat just a meal. Whereas in the Western world, food is the least commodity you could think of. Everybody can feed well. So now, if you have not eaten well, how do you want to invest in learning tech skills? I happen to be a founder of a tech training company too. And I realized that because we train people all over the world, UK, US, Canada, Europe, and Africa. So unfortunately, we had to stop from Africa because of so many reasons. Firstly, as much as I would like to invest in Africa, we had to pause because they really struggled to pay that amount because of the dollar pound exchange rate. Or imagine that government is funding it for them. It will be very affordable. Maybe they are subsidizing it. They will be able to do it. There are some young chaps that are very, very good. But unfortunately, they don't have the right amount, the amount of money to pay for that particular training, just like in UNITO. Unfortunately, Federal University that used to be a cheap one is now very expensive. I don't really want to go into that. So now the tech training is not cheap because you are definitely using the tech experts to train the intending tech experts. So definitely it's not going to be cheap because the the salary scale, and I believe Mr. Emma can attest to that, the salary scale for every particular role. The one for tech experts are expensive. So now, if you want to take a good tech expert to teach or to lecture or to train, you need to pay them well. If you are paying them well, definitely you are collecting the money from the students that are being trained. It's not going to be cheap for them to. How many of them can afford it? Now, even if they can afford it, what is the stability of the network they are using for getting this training done? Because most of the training are online, even the ones that are physical. You still need to connect your internet to do a lot of things. So definitely, the 2 points I would like to raise is the poverty level in Africa that could not make a lot of people to afford that training. The training. Then another thing I would like to say is because we want a shortcut, not because we don't want to learn, but because what we can afford or within the space of time we have, we want to learn fast. Then eventually we learn nothing. And that will lead to learning half-baked. That is no fundamental skill. You can't just wake up and feel because AI is trending and you want to go and learn data analysis. Do you know how to add 1 + 1 to make it 7? Are you confident enough to see X, Y, Z, C, 1 apostrophe 1 minus X raised to power 2 equals to 0? Are you able to do that? But because AI is trending, you want to go into AI. So that will lead me to say, before you could ever think of learning any tech training skills, understand yourself so that you will not be half-baked. Statistically, about 30% of our students drop off, not because the training is bad. In fact, we record all the trainings to even watch after, but because it is not what they need. And when you have a consultation with them and you ask them, are you okay with basic mathematics? I scored A in mathematics when I was in secondary school. Okay, now, when you are in secondary school, you don't have a kid. When you were in secondary school, you were not thinking about your source of income. But things are changing. So people really need to know who they are now and be able to know how they can learn it well and not to rush things. And even if you're able to finish the training is not enough. You need hands-on experience, not just rushing to use the tools. You can use Python, I can use SQL, I can now connect. Okay, can you connect your database from AWS, S3 bucket, to your SSMS or to your TSQL? Sorry, I'm trying to go technical. What I mean is, can you connect your cloud database to what you are going to use to query that cloud? Because definitely there's no training that might teach you that. Unfortunately, that is what you'll be doing if you are working with a bigger company that have a very big data. Because you can't store all data on Excel. Some data, if Excel has a disadvantage, or one of the disadvantages of Excel is when it's about 1 million rows, it will start to crash. And I'm sure now it is even below 1 million rows. I was working on a data about 500,000 rows. sometimes last week, it was crashing. But if you use SQL, it can do it so well, or you connect some other Power BI, it will do so well. So you really know all those things. And if I'm going to interview you, I'm not going to ask you what is SQL. I'm going to ask you what are the challenges you face using Excel. You understand? And I expect you that if you really have the hands-on experience, you just give me that Excel is fucked up. When I used the Excel, when it was crashing, immediately I connected to SQL. And that was why our organization moved from Excel to SQL and Power BI. So things like that. So hands-on experience matters, which I think is also one of the gaps we are facing in Africa because, and you can also blame us, the EdTech tool, because it is expensive to maintain those things. So sometimes we just give things that will work and good enough, some people will catch up. Unfortunately, some will not. So I would like to just say that lacking fundamental skill and at the same time getting the right skill for yourself is a major significant gap in Africa.
Thank you very Thank you very much. I would like to add something, or more like a question, Patty. When you made mention of hands-on experience, I can relate to that. Amongst other things that you mentioned, I would say there was a time when I enrolled for SEO training, and I had to pause along the way because when I got to see the whole training process, I knew at that point mentally I wasn't ready for it, so I just had to take a break. That okay, I'll come back to this. So now, looking at hands-on experience that you mentioned, okay, how do I put this now? For instance, okay, you want someone who has experience in this field, but if there is no room for this person to, practicalize, let me put it that way, how do we now get this expert? Because I think that's also one of the challenges that we are facing.
Yeah. Thank you.
So can you just speak briefly on that? Just briefly.
All right, thank you so much. So, and that's why we have internship, right? So now, we have different types of internship. We have the paid, we have the free. Unfortunately, nobody wants to work without being paid. So that's where the problem is. If I should tell you now that, Tricia, would you like to intern with us for 6 months? I'll be like, 6 months without paying me? Are you kidding me?
In this Nigeria's economy.
That is what you just like, especially the Gen Z is just like, that place is toxic. They just want to use me, right? But you need to learn how to learn well, because it is one thing is to also know how to also use the tools. One thing is to have the experience. The another thing is to know how to collaborate, which will lead me to what System has said, right? My best developer in my organization, my former best, because he's been sacked, my former best developer in my organization is very good. I mean very, very good. But just tell him to supervise a project or a task given to a junior developer. They will fight. Because if he wants to communicate, instead of him to say, can you write the code this way? After reviewing your code, I realized line this is line this. He will just be like, are you not supposed to know that this is how you are going? How is he supposed to know? Why if he knows, why is he working under you? Do you understand? So there are some skills we also need to learn. And it is very funny how eventually he was sacked. He needs to be sacked because in an organization, we want more than the technical skills. I want to be in a meeting. As I'm here now, I'm supposed to be in another meeting, but there's someone representing me. If I cannot tell you to represent the technical team as the lead technical expert, then why are you there? I can easily get someone that can do it, because if you're doing that to them, definitely you'll be doing that to me. And the day he tried it to me in the meeting, that was the last day he came to the office, because your technical skill is not enough. You understand? So
right.
These are the major things. And the Gen Zs, we need to know that industry is not TikTok. It's not. You need to laugh, because I need to check. I check your profile on LinkedIn. So you need to know that industry is not TikTok. Unfortunately, they are trying to change the narrative of the world. But the fact remains that a business-oriented person just to make, he wants to make profits, and that's why they're employing you. But you also want to earn, that's why you are here. So we need to benefit ourselves. So if I'm not benefiting from you, why am I employing you? If you're not benefiting from me, why are you working with me? You understand? So there are a lot of things in Africa.
Everything.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's all.
Pardon me, I'll have to intersect at this point, given the time frame that we have. But thank you so much for that response. Ms. Thelma, I would like you to chip in at this point. We're considering, the workforce readiness and the skill gaps. From your own HR point of view, Ms. Thelma, I would like you to chip in. From your own HR, point of view, we have many organizations, who are adopting digital systems, but they lack AI-ready talent. What major skills gaps do you see among job seekers today? And also, how can HR leaders and CEOs collaborate to close these gaps effectively?
So it's a lot in the industry. So first of all, the labor market has become worse and worse. It's like every day is getting worse. Like he mentioned, we have people who are not interested in even interning, saying that you're going to be used. Of course, at every point in your life, you must be used for you to get results, right?
Yeah.
I remember in a community where I was, and somebody advertised and said, "Oh, I have somebody who just finished school, and then they're looking to intern and learn. Salary expectation is 150,000." And I was so triggered that I said, when I finished school, I was not looking for a paid job. I was looking to learn, like, what is wrong with this generation? So what I've seen, I think these are things I've mentioned before. I think poor digital literacy, right? People know how to use TikTok, like you said, but they can't even use Excel. It's crazy that you're leaving school. I feel like if you're leaving school, the next thing you should do is to really go for digital literacy. You really need to learn that. I don't think there's any organization that wants to hire somebody who doesn't know how to use Excel, Word, PowerPoint, so poor digital skills are still there. Don't know how to use Google Space. I think I see that a lot. That's a major gap that I've seen. The second one is writing skills. People are getting worse at writing. Aside from the prompt and ChatGPT, you realize that somebody cannot make a complete write-up. Like, I miss those days where you had to come to an interview and do a handwritten application. Because when you do a handwritten application, that's where we see what your thinking is like and see what your grammar is like. So even if you memorize that at home, no matter how memorable you think you've done that, it will definitely show up in how you're writing, your punctuation and all of that. So I think I've seen weak communication where people can't write properly. I think the gaps are also adaptability. You see somebody resumed work today, and then, because somebody told them, you shouldn't drop that thing there. They just, drop off their bag and say, I can't work here, it's toxic, and they're off the next day. So I feel like the gaps are also adaptability. People are not willing to adapt. And it's so interesting that, they come to, there's no air condition here. Meanwhile, they are coming from what do you call these places? This face me. Exactly. This face me, I face you place where they so you're now wondering what type of expectation is going on here. So people are, it's only Nigeria really that people are trying to put up an impression that, they don't even have. There were times when, as somebody who lived abroad, right, there's some offices that when you go to at that time, they tell you, power, a big organization, right, when they're going for break, they shut down power. Like, everybody's trying to manage, their resources. So here, people tend to have a lot of flimsy expectations. And then I also see professionalism and workplace ethics. People are not professional enough, maybe because they don't have the training yet. I feel like people don't understand what professionalism is. Like, they come and they expect you to treat them just like their siblings are treating them at home, and when you look at, do you blame them? Maybe not completely, because maybe there are some areas, if they did their internships, I remember those days when this CWS used to be very serious, right? Like, you actually go to places that does exactly what you saw. Today, I see people, their CWS is done in a different, in fact, they even just go and get letter.
A different
Do you understand?
Yeah.
Yes, they even go and get letter. They don't even participate. So because I think that's also that's the fundamental place where the gap is originating from. Because if they had the opportunity to be in a structured environment where they're coming from school, I mean, they're more humble, right? They're more able to really look at things and learn. So, but when they're now meeting it after school, where they already have expectation that once you graduate is to get a job and start earning, you undermine that CWES program.
Big.
Yeah, so you undermine that CWES program that they're supposed to have. Now, how can HR and CEOs close the gap? I feel like you people are giving too much stress on businesses. Like, we have to understand that we are all in the same environment. There's no business that is benefiting differently from this government. Some people that may have what is so companies cannot be raising people. It's not their duty, right? People should have some level of fundamentals before they come into the workplace. But I feel like even at that, we'll continue to build L&D programs. But those learning and development programs are things that are related to the job. We can't fix you. We can't frame your attitude. We cannot fix your character. So expecting that from an organization to shape you and your thinking, that's a lot of work on us, especially when we don't even have funds or there are no investors. We are managing our lives. And you're telling me to come and fix your character? I don't think so. So we can only teach you skills that are relevant to our work to achieve results. So you grow your technical skills with support, but we can't change you. So that's what we can do in that area. I still think that, the internship to employment pipeline still works well. Because in those days, if you remember, in places like Shell, Chevron, Ajib, many of these organizations, back then, it used to be, they come to school, take the most, the best graduating students, and they actually did make good employees, and they actually transitioned into leadership roles. When you speak to some people that retired from some of these organizations, they will tell you that they were there for 20 years, right? Like they started working there when they were 18 or 19, like immediately
that
they finished
blows my
school.
mind.
Yes. So I feel like that is still very key, because at this point where we are, it's like we have to shape people the way we want them to be, right? Realistically, because if you're looking for already shaped people, I think they come with a lot of different, different baggages. And if you don't have the capacity to withhold it, it will also affect you. So I feel like we still have to continue building the internship to employment pipeline. However, we can just make room for maybe remote working. So if you don't want to pay them, if you don't want to pay anything at all, it can be remote working and make arrangement for data. And then if you want them to come in, maybe stipend to cover the accommodation, not payment. We only want to pay you if to them realize that, okay, so these people who are doing well, you also transition them. And if you also show them a clear path of how they'll move from internship to employment, I think it can also motivate them. What else can we do? I think the skill assessment is still very important. There's something called competency framework. It's something that a lot of organizations don't do in Nigeria, but it's very critical, right? So when you understand the skills that are required for somebody to be successful in a job, you also try to, build their skills in those areas. I think it's an area that, most businesses do not have time for. Funding that they have. So HRs will have to do skill assessment and see where there are gaps at every point and identify how to train people. And then now that we have a lot of self resources, I mean, people can also train themselves. Sometimes train yourself. Company cannot do anything for you. Go on YouTube. Some of these platforms are already free, right? There are some courses on some of these edtech platforms that we all have that is free. Go to YouTube, learn, join webinars like this. There must be one or two that you learn out of. You haven't paid anything, right? So yeah, I think that's really it. But on a general, I think in the markets today we have a lot of serious people. We have a lot of people who think that, because of the fallacy or the thing about social media, no matter how fast AI is growing, not everybody can succeed in AI. No matter how far social media influencing is going, not everybody will succeed in influencing. And then are you not asking yourself, if everybody goes to that space, this is a lot of, that means there's a gap, there's opportunity for other people. Go to universities now. You don't even find medical students anymore, right? People feel like, why should I spend 8 years studying medicine when I can make money on TikTok?
When I can just,
but we don't know the impact of what we're doing. In the next 10 years, we wouldn't have doctors. We won't have what do you call it, dentists. You won't have pharmacists because people feel like it's not worth their time. So we are actually in for a disaster in the next 10 years. In fact, I can't even tell you who the leaders, like each time I think about it, who are going to be the leaders of organization in the next 20 years. You see these people that I'm seeing here? It's really crazy, right? So there's a lot that has to happen. And at this point, it's only self-learning. And I don't want to say this, but I feel like parents still have a fundamental contribution, right? If you're raising your child, if you raise them in a manner that they learn to be responsible, you learn that, oh, you have to go through this. No, but in fact, today, parents are not even asking whether you finish school as long as you're making money. There are a lot of them that they're making money on TikTok and their parents don't care about uni. Who did he help? Truly, who did he help? But that's a sentence that we make. But along the line, we also realize how important some of these things is. So hiring today in Nigeria is very difficult. You find a lot of people who are not interested in working because they feel like I can just do my social media and earn my, and truly, minimum wage is 70,000 naira. And then if I dance on TikTok, I can make $50.
Okay,
in 2 days,
Selma, let me just interject, because the next question I was going to ask you is, somewhat related to what you've been doing. So let me just bring it up so that you just, summarize everything. Now we're looking at learning models are changing rapidly. So the question now is, how should companies approach learning and development to ensure employees continue acquiring future relevant skills such as data literacy, prompt engineering, and digital problem solving? I know you've said something about it's not in the plate of the company to train employees and all of that. But then
no.
I
I did not say it's not in the place of companies.
No, like
to fix
yes,
you, to fix your
yeah, that's the word. That's the word, to fix. Yes. So please, how can we bridge the gap in this case?
Okay, I think thankfully, because before I'll say that a lot of people were not getting the amount of training that they needed. For example, if you have, let me use a multinational, or let me just continue using the Chevron and the Shell that I was referring to, right? In those days, when technology has not really been a thing in Nigeria, the amount of training that people who were working in Nigeria were quite different from people who were working in America, right? Those people in that area, they had a lot more trainings because they had the experts there, they had in some instance, people who were in other developing countries did not have access to that much training. But today, we have platforms, right? Online learning platforms. And today, companies are having self-paced training where you can log in on your platform. I mean, that's what many edtech platforms do. Log in on your platform and self-learn. You have a prompt that walks you through all the trainings, right? So self-paced learning. We have on-the-job training, right? So on-the-job means that you're working and then you're being shown how to do this one after the other, because everything is not when you sit in the class, in the class, that's when you're learning. You also learn on the job when people are showing you what to do. We also have simulation-based learning. Simulation-based learning are used mostly for maybe some sort of technical, for example, an electrician, right? If I want to teach you how to fix this, maybe fix a socket, there has to be a simulation where I'm bringing out the cover, and then we see that it's bad and then we fix that. So we have simulation-based learning. So it's like a what do you call simulation? How do I explain simulation? So simulation learning is like experiencing it real time, right? Like experiencing it real time. So I'll tell you about one experience that I had. There was an event that I went for, and we were being taught about refugees, like what refugees go through. And we were taken into a room. The next thing, we were taken into a room. We thought we were actually in a room to see. And the next thing, everywhere changed. There was so much noise. There were military people. They were shooting. And the next thing, we found ourselves running. We were running, trying to find shelter. Some people were being gunned down, like they were. So actually, to me, I was confused. That's where I was, because I was experiencing something that looks like a real-time situation, right? And then eventually we saw some people who helped us and put us somewhere. So after the whole experience, that was when we now realized that, oh, we actually were refugees at that point, So we had to run for our lives. And then we had people who helped us. We had to be in refugee camps where they were giving us like food that we could not even eat. So that's an example of simulation. So you also have that where some organizations use that to also, help people get an in. And for me, that was a long life learning. Like that experience stays in my head. till tomorrow, simply because it was real time and I had to experience what I was being taught. Then what else? I think micro learning in groups. Another thing too is focused groups, like small groups like this. Another thing I do in my organization is sometimes we buy a book and we tell everybody to read and everybody take on chapters. And when we come back to discuss it, people discuss that chapter. I realized that model, we learn a lot and we learn faster, because when people share their experiences and what they've learned, that's also a form of learning. So I think as micro learning, simulation, on-the-job training, online learning platforms like this are really the way to go in terms of learning. However, the physical workshop are still very key, right? So they are still very, very key, because sometimes a physical touch and explanation also goes a long way to those learnings. But now that we have a combination of everything, we don't have to lose out completely. So it means that people can still learn either on site or also self-paced. Most of my trainings has been online, and the skills are quite what I needed, compared to also being physical. So now we have options to learn and actually grow ourselves.
All right. Thank you very much for your response, Ms. Thelma. So to our participants, like I stated earlier on, we have the chat box for you to drop your questions and observations or suggestions. You can drop in your questions in the chat box. Very quickly, I'm just going to be reading I'm seeing some comments here. And please, for your questions, if you have any question directed to a particular speaker, if it's to Engineer Ayotomiwa, you can state it there. If it's to Dr. Ibukun, please state it. And if it's for Ms. Thelma, you can indicate when dropping your question. So that way we know who your questions are directed to or who you want to answer your particular questions. Okay. So someone, Francis, I hope I got your name correctly. Francis says, thank God someone has mentioned writing. I am sincerely worried about the future of writing skills demonstrated in our workforce in Nigeria. Okay, we hope that there will be improvements in the long run. Okay, there's a question here, but I'm going to ask that much later when we start taking questions for our panelists. I just want to take the comments from our participants before I move on to asking Engineer Ayotomiwa the next question. Okay, so I think this is Barrister Koni. He says parental role is very crucial and cannot be overemphasized. Yes, you're right. Thank you very much for your comments. Okay, now we're heading back to Engineer Ayotomiwa. So we're going to be looking at cost saving now, looking at what you've done in time past. The question I have for you is, what AI-driven tools or techniques do you believe will deliver the next wave of cost savings and operational efficiency? We're looking at the cost saving aspects now. So what AI-driven tools do you believe, or the techniques do you believe will deliver the next wave of cost savings and operational efficiency?
Tools that would help you forecast. And I'll give you an example. So in one of the gigs that we did with the Nigerian military, we had 3 strategies that we were going to apply or deploy for them. Number 1 was to collect that data and visualize the data. And then the next skill that was needed was the regulatory knowledge of the situation that provided or came about those data. And the last was the electrical electronics deployment, or engineering deployment. Now, we didn't have to do the other. We didn't in this cost savings and everything. We made all this cost savings from AI and just from data visualization, forecasting, trend analysis, and things like that. Right? It wasn't as if we couldn't do the other parts, but we had to take our win at that point, because we knew that if we went any further, there'll be too much pushback, if you understand what I mean. Because again, understand that some of the work that we do, there's some other guys on the other side of the table and that we're negotiating with. So if, for example, you had put in front of me a 91 billion naira bill, and then I come back with evidence that it is 48 billion, then I add to you and say, you know what? I still have to do some other exercises to bring down this 48 billion. How would you feel on the other side of the table? Right? So just by visualizing the data running trend analysis on the data, forecasting the data, right? We're able to make those savings. So more specifically to my own sector, so AI-driven load forecasting, consumption forecasting, predictive maintenance tools, billing verification, which is such a huge tool that that we need, and of course visualization of the data. It's amazing when you just visualize the data, you can even tell where something is going wrong or not. So these are the tools that would deliver. There is something that is said. AI saves money from eliminating guesswork. Right? Everywhere guesswork dies, savings appear. So that's something that is being said. So if you can eliminate any form of guesswork and do things with more certainty, then you're saving money, right? So, for example, if I told you from data that selling your type of earring that you're wearing right now is going to make you a billionaire, and tell you the confidence level that they have, and you are able to then go out, you understand that if you are going to open an earring shop, you would have maybe different variety. Do you get? But if only this earring that you have on is the only one that people are going to buy, then you see that if you stock your shop with just this earring, you're going to make a lot of money versus investing in all sorts of earrings that no one else will buy. Do you get? So that's how I would answer that question. And if I may, I would like to just comment to something the two panelists talked about internship.
Okay.
Right. And I think that it's a very dicey topic, actually. I actually believe that internships should be paid. In fact, at QTech, we take that very seriously. All our interns at every level are paid, right? Because we understand, and it's a Maslow hierarchy of needs situation. When you're hungry, or if, for example, you had to walk all the way from your house to the office, we don't think that you'd be, working at the optimum level, right? And that's why we think that, payment is important. However, I think that there are different stages. I think there's something we should differentiate between volunteering and internships, right? And when to do both of them at two different stages of your life. So, for example, as a married man that I am right now, I cannot be volunteering anymore. I also cannot be interning anymore. Do you get? Perhaps maybe at a different level. So maybe, for example, there's some stage, maybe if I'm doing some master's, PhD work and things like that, there's still some parts of internship. And this is something that I've benefited greatly. One of the biggest life-changing events of my life was interning at Goldman Sachs in London, and this is one of the top 3 investment banks in the world. And I was paid 800 for every week that I was working, even flight tickets and transportation and things like that, right? And it was life changing. I mean, it was brilliant. And I know that even Goldman Sachs and all of these top investment firms, and even they have internships that you can do maybe at master's level and even at PhD levels, right? So there is a time to do those kind of internships. But of course, if you are working day to day, or you already have a family and a huge stuff, then internship is not what you need. You need a full-time job to be able to meet your needs and things like that. So volunteering, when do you do volunteering? I did a lot of volunteer work in secondary school. I started volunteering from secondary school and in university when I was still under the roofs of my parents. Do you get? When I didn't have to bother about accommodation, feeding. Do you get? I walked into offices that I admired and said, you know what, I want to volunteer. Do you get? And it was structured. Do you understand? I remember volunteering for Inside the Fire. I was not paid a dime, but I was living under my parents' roof. My parents loved the idea. They gave me transport money, and then I went back and forth, and I learned a lot of skills. Worked with great people like Emmanuel Okeleji, Femi Kuti, not the musician. Femi Kuti runs Reliance, HMO, and some of other top firms in Lagos. Met people like that. I was mentored by them, right? So that was an important part of my life. Do you get? I can't volunteer after NYC. It's going to be a bit difficult because that part of your life is very difficult. When you leave, when you're done with NYC, is that part of your life when everybody leaves you alone? I don't know if I don't know if anyone else felt that kind of culture shock, right? They don't send you pocket money anymore. They don't. Everybody just see you
Reality
like, you know
hits
what,
you.
like a wave. That's not a great time to volunteer. That's a time to try and get, something locked down, perhaps maybe a job or a very good paying internship. Do you understand? And we think because most of our best talents were found through internships, right? So I think that internships should be paid. Again, Ms. Tema hinted, and we've met people like that, clowns like that have nothing to offer and say they want to be paid 150K per month, or want some bonuses and things like that, right? We respectfully decline their request and ask them to find employment elsewhere, right? But I think that especially, and I'm speaking more to the employers on this platform, to say, that we should, have a budget for it, because in integrating, the next workforce, the next talent and things like that, we should incentivize it. Because think about it, you're at work, you can't feed, you don't have a house that person is not going to be able to deliver any real value, even if that value is locked in their tummy, right? But if they can know that, what, my transportation is sorted, my feeding to an extent is sorted. For some cases, in fact, I think we provide even accommodation, in some of the internships that we do, and for some of our NYC teammates within the company, just to help them settle and help them to be able to draw out the talents that they have. And this is something that the government, because Suez was something government used to pay. Suez also, the ITF is a company that, is an institution that's supposed to pay for this part. But unfortunately, I don't even think I've been paid for my own IT. And I don't even remember the last how many years ago I did
well,
that IT program.
I think I got mine. Okay, Engineer Ayotomi, at this point, I'll just put you on the pause. I can see Miss Thelma's hand up, so I believe she has something to say. I wanted to interject when you make mention of volunteering after NYC and all of that. But before I say anything about that, Ms. Selma, go ahead. You can speak.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. I think you made great points, but let me just say something. I think Nigeria is suffering from a poor system, right? So it's
Absolutely.
actually the problem of the system. What you said is relatable. As somebody who studied in the UK as well, I did not understand the fact that Nigerian students go to lecture just 4 hours out of their entire day and they don't have a job. I did not understand why people don't have part-time jobs. I did not understand why people weren't doing something. So in fact, let me just say that was what started FMR Agency. I started FMR Agency to help young students gain access to experience. That was the first service that we're providing. We're helping students get jobs. So at that point, in fact, we had to teach them that cleaning is a job, right? So if you cannot get a job, so if you cannot get a job in an organization because you're not a graduate, we encourage them to get jobs. We are working with School of Nursing in the East. So we're placing them on jobs where they were doing after jobs as maybe customer service, waiters, cleaners. So because they have a lot of time on their hands. They don't experience 8 to 5 lecture. They experience like a few, and there's no system in place from these schools that encourages people to work and learn, just like you have it in the UK. Of course, you cannot be a student in the UK and you're not working. That's why you have 20 hours dedicated to working. Do you understand? So I think we're suffering the poor system. That's why that volunteering now comes up, because they didn't do that, they didn't do that the time they were studying. That would have been the best time for them to do it. And that's the awareness that we're creating. Yeah, so that's the awareness we're creating now. And that's what most students are also trying to do. So we should also encourage employers, like also put out some roles that are not so serious, and give them to students. And you still pay less, right? So they just get to earn and understand. So that by the time they finish, they already have some level of experience. Some people worked in their father's shop selling biscuits and drinks. It's also an experience, but they don't understand that you're doing exchange with customers. Are you satisfying them? So they are all, but people don't actually represent it because of our culture. So yes, and again, a lot of businesses as well. In UK, most of the businesses are government, enabled, right? And, funded and the rest. Again, if we put boredom on small businesses to provide accommodation, which small business to provide accommodation, give feed, they will close up.
In
So we
Nigeria.
have to always remember that 85% of business in Nigeria, before it used to be 75%. Right now, 85% of businesses in Nigeria are SMEs. SMEs who have, wait, just pay attention. SMEs are companies that have 300 employees and less. But today, SMEs in Nigeria, people that have 50 employees and less. Do you understand me? So it's also an environmental situation where the most multinationals that used to make these things happen are no longer here. The international organizations are leaving every day. Every day we're hearing this factory has packed up, this company has packed up. And the more it is, the more it's also affecting this new generation. It's also stopping their chances of having some of these experiences. So that's why their volunteering and their internship are being deferred to post studies. But anybody that is interested in developing themselves would know that I have to start now to learn something. I have to start now to do things, right? So that I don't get locked up. You see somebody, NYSC, you're looking for a place where you will not do anything. You know, it's crazy. Somebody says I'm looking for a place where I don't have to
Just
go
want
there.
to
And you
clock
don't have
in.
any plans for
Just want to
yourself.
clock in and wait for payment at the end of the month.
Yeah,
So it's a mixture of a lot of fundamentals that is going on. And I don't know how we want to address that. That's why I keep saying that. I mean, not all businesses cannot fix all those problems. So we really have to lower our expectations, you know.
Thank you very much.
Until we
Thank you
start
very
having
much,
access
Ms.
to funds.
Selva.
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't know if I can
You
just chip in
said
something before
okay. Yes,
you
you
conclude
can.
on
I
that.
was
Sorry.
even going to draw. I was going to draw your attention to it as well. So you can go
All right.
ahead.
All right, thank you. So I think we also need to emphasize on mentorship. I'll talk from the technical part of my area, which is writing codes and all of that in tech. There are some codes that just need someone to tell you that do it this way. Just you might debugging is like a code that is not working, you want to make it work. Identifying errors, which are called bugs. So when you're trying to fix that error, it might take you 5 hours to do. It can even frustrate you to sleep and wake up. If I didn't get an error, I sleep and wake up and come back to it. Hopefully, I always get it when I sleep. So imagine that it took me 24 hours to fix an error, and I can easily charge with someone that has done exactly the same thing, that is mentoring me. And I can just say, Ayotomiwa, please, I am having this error 401, and be like, oh, that kind of error is just a UI error. Meet your front end. And when you get to the front end just say, oh, it's just the implementation of the API. And within 30 seconds,
It's sorted out.
How express it will be, how fast your project will be, and how happy your team member and your project manager is going to be. So mentorship also matters. But unfortunately, now everybody is a mentor. Everybody is leading. You cannot imagine. I don't want to go so deep into that. So it is important. Everybody, it is important. That's why on TikTok, I go to TikTok at night when I'm done. I sleep very late, but when I want to sleep, maybe 30, I just scroll. I just want to laugh. I just want to see that part of the world. And you just see a boy of 15 giving marriage advice. Are you kidding me?
Relationship advice.
Yes. And you now see the comment section, 700,000 comments. Like, what is happening?
People like, yeah, you're saying the right thing.
Of course. Yes. And that is the template, that's the expectation of the young generation, right? So now expectations are high. Nobody wants to learn. Everybody wants to be a boss. And so the narrative is changing. But I think if we sensitize ourselves and understand that there's always stages to learning, and even education is very, very important. So it might not be 100%, but sometimes the exposure you have will matter. There was a time I went for an interview and with an organization, and they were like, I'm so bored. I was like, what are you saying? Do you know the number of professors I have faced? You know how many times I failed my seminar just because they said I was too young to have my PhD, not because I did not pass. Yes, not because I did not pass. Now you just want to you that you are just most people here, they don't even have their degree. You don't even have a degree. You want to talk to me? I will finish you. You understand? Because I've been drilled that way. So education is also very important. No matter how much you are earning, just it will still work one day. At the same time, mentorship and the internship. I believe if we have all of this in place, trust me, it would be so good. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ibuku, for chipping in on that. You know, I had a similar experience some time ago. I do voiceover, and at a point, someone reached out to me and said, why don't I teach voiceover? And I was like, no, I haven't gotten to that level. So I think we need to come to the realization, this mentoring of a thing, everybody just wants to be at the forefront. They just want to be there. And they forget that there's a process to all of this. You have to go through, you know, phase one, phase two. You have to get through certain levels before you say, oh, I want to mentor A, B, C, or I want to mentor X, Y, Z. So it's a very good one from what you've said, and I really can relate to it. The next question I have for you, we're moving on to the certification aspect now. We had other questions, but given our time framework, we might not be able to answer the rest of the questions, but let's have a look at certifications. But before then, I have a question here from one of our participants. Okay, he said, I think this should be directed to Engineer Ayo Tomiwa or so, but he says, so who is willing to invest in our technology infrastructure, including things like electricity, stable network connectivity, which has absolutely worsened in parts of Nigeria over the years? Why is there no course that will teach? Okay, this question is not so clear. It's not so clear from this. Okay, so what's the person's name again? Francis, I think you can resend your question, make it more clear so we can be able to ask our panelists. Okay. So someone asked about data literacy. I think Dr. Ibukun, you can chip in on this. The person was asking how they can learn this, you know, these skills in relation to data literacy.
Yeah, thank you. Thank God now YouTube is a university. And as much as I condemn TikTok, honestly, TikTok is tending towards YouTube. So there's a way I search for education materials, or educational materials. So when I want a lengthy educational material, I go to YouTube and check the videos, watch videos. But when I want a very short one, something like 2-3 minutes, I can get it on TikTok. Or I want a platform where people be saying it's live and things like that. So there are so many edtech, Coursera, Udemy, and also you can, even if you didn't have the money, please, you can try and get the money. All these edtech companies, I believe E86 also edtech, an edtech company, please try and get the money and pay, because I believe they will train you and they will also mentor you. And that mentorship really, really matter, especially when you're looking for a job. Someone you can just run to and say, I have an interview with so company. What are the expected questions? What should I do? How do I approach it? What are they expecting from me? And things like that. I believe if you're able to do all of those things, you'll be able to learn. Either you have money or you don't, or either you can afford it or not. Everybody have got access to data now, I want to believe. Even if it is expensive in Africa, we are still struggling to survive. So just get your data. All you just need is the data. Get your data, go online, learn on YouTube, learn on TikTok, use Google, use ChatGPT, and so many other learning platforms that you can do. I believe with that, you can have any kind of digital or data literacy you want to. In fact, you can just say, you can go on YouTube and type 30 minutes lecture on data literacy. Trust me, you will see a lot of videos and it will give you the summary of how you are going to do it. So I believe if you make use of all of this, trust me, you will be so good and AI will not be a problem for you or tech in general.
Okay, thank you so much, for your response. In addition to what Dr. Ibukun has said, the person that asked about data literacy, you can, E86 offers these trainings. E86 Limited offer data analytics training. So you can contact us after this session. We'll definitely post, our phone number will be posted on the chat box. So for those who are interested in learning these skills, you can always reach out to us after this webinar session. Okay. So I have someone here who said something. This should be targeted towards Engineer Ayotomiwa. It should be for you. There was a time you mentioned, you spoke about, overload, feeder overload and all of that, and then using AI to analyze data and all of that. So the person says, I don't suppose that people have begun to use AI in this way in Nigeria yet to predict feeder overload and such. Can you just briefly speak on this, please, Engineer Ayotomiwa?
Yeah, absolutely. So with new infrastructure, and if you look at the cement deal, for example, I mean, that's one of the deals that's supposed to help with overhauling the transmission subsector in NESI. NESI is the Nigerian electricity supply industry. And like I hinted on in an earlier answer, that a lot of our infrastructure are aging infrastructure. You recall that there was this major grid collapse last year, and the city transformer that collapsed was, I think, 57 years old, right? So essentially we have a lot of things, in the Nigerian grid that are older than I am, so we treat them with a lot of respect. But you see, what happens is once they are then switched out, we're switching them out with intelligent infrastructure, right? There's a part of my business, for example, that allows me to run a small distribution subsector, so like a ring-fenced area. And what we're doing in that ring-fenced area is to deploy smart devices from, end to end up to the last mile. So anybody who is deploying any form of infrastructure right now, either a mini grid infrastructure or, in fact, inverters. So the inverter in my house and the one in my office are fully AI enabled, right? So in anybody who's invested in business right now in either the distribution, generation, or transmission are using, smart devices. And anytime any of the old devices fail, we're switching them out with newer devices. So that's how, and like I said, in my answer to saying that, is the workforce ready? You get, because this infrastructure are very expensive. They're running to millions of US dollars. So you would not expect that somebody who works in IBDC or Ikeja Electric would, will be held responsible for not being able to use that device, because that device is not there, right? But in smaller areas, so when you hear that a new mini grid is built, there's a work we're doing in Wuse Market, if you're familiar with the Abuja metropolis, right? We're doing in partnership with GVE and with Abuja Electricity. Everything there deployed is smart, right? And I can show you some of our own things that we have deployed that are smart, right? And those are the things that we're using to make these decisions. And eventually, if growth can pick up, the speed of growth can pick up, right? The cement deal already, I think, is more than 8 years, and it was supposed to be deployed in 5 years. Again, I will not, try and even delve into the problems that are, that we're experiencing on that deal. But if we can quickly switch up a lot of these things, if the government can do the right thing. I delivered a lecture, I think, last week concerning bringing private investors and private operators even into transmission, and where we were trying to entice private sector to invest heavily, in transmission and distribution related work. And when they do, they would bring the liquidity that would be much needed to switch out a lot of these old devices, and then make the entire grid smart. What we're experiencing right now is that parts of the grid are smart and then the others are analog. And of course, that you will not be able to do things end to end that way. So I hope that answered the question.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that did answer the question. So let's look at certifications now. Let's come to the area of certification. You have participated in executive programs at MIT, Columbia, Dartmouth, UT Austin, and more. So with your wealth of experience, which certifications or training pathways would you recommend for young professionals aspiring to work at the intersection of energy and AI?
So I would like to talk about the free ones because some of the ones that I did were really expensive, right? And except you have a grant for it, it might be a bit, but start with the free ones. I know that Microsoft AI Fundamentals, there's a free Microsoft AI Fundamentals, AI 9000, I believe. I know Google also has, a one AI, Google Data Analytics. I think it's a free program as well, and it's very powerful as well. Then you can move on to maybe some AWS Cloud Practitioner certification, or NVIDIA AI certifications, or Databricks Data Engineering. Those are good programs that you can sign up for. There are other programs that you can do maybe on Coursera and things like that. But essentially, looking at this, looking at maybe data analytics as an entry, then maybe data science if you want to move it a notch further, because they're two different things, right? And of course you should be speaking to E86 as well, because they've got a lot of, so what they've done is to create different skills and create them into a course for you to then digest, depending on what career pathway, because that's very important. Do you understand? The pathway is very, very important. So for example, if you want to you want to know how HR, AI in HR and things like that, then they can create, certain things that will then help you, to move forward. But those are the, pointers that. And if you want to then do some energy specific stuff, then you can look at MIT, Stanford, and University of Texas at Austin. Fantastic programs, in energy. You can do that. They cost a bit more, but I mean, they're also work is really good. The opportunities after the programs are good. The in-depth, for example, the University of Texas at Austin, understand that Texas is a big state for energy, right? A lot of energy companies are residing there. So those are very strong programs that that you can look at as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Francis, if you have any question, you can please make use of the chat box. Please make use of the chat box to drop your questions or suggestions or observations, whatever it is you want to say. Please indicate it in the chat box. Thank you very much. Once again, Engineer Ayotomiwa, thank you very much for your response to the question in relation to certifications. Now we're going to move over to Dr. Ibukun, still on certifications. Looking at the global AI landscape, what role do certifications play in validating skills today? We'd like to know what roles do certifications play in validating skills today?
Thank you so much. I would like to talk about this in two directions. So because the way the workforce is structured in Western world is quite different from us in Africa, from us in Africa. So in Africa, we are quite certificate inclined, right? But precisely in the UK, no one really cares about your certificate, unfortunately. So they'll prefer you to have done internship or have the hands-on experience. So in most cases, and that is directly being interpreted into tech. So in tech, no one really cares about the number of certification you have. Unfortunately, I need to say that all my developers in my organization, I have a lot of them, my own personal organization, honestly speaking, I don't know the university they went to. I'm not joking. But as I'm talking to you, I'm jumping on a meeting with one of them. When I tell him to write this particular line, when I tell him to write this particular component, what is the timeline? He gives me the timeline and he delivers it. And that is what I'm giving to my client. And that's what the users are going to use, unfortunately. So certification doesn't really work well if in the Western world, precisely in the UK, that much. But it's still okay. And so what they do in most jobs is they will say so certificates or equivalent experience. So you see that equivalent experience is way higher than the certificate, unfortunately. And that's why you see that you have a PhD and your head or the manager of that or CEO just a college college is like a technical school, but it does the work well, far better than you, right? So, Joe, I will not stay right well or push away certifications. That's the first part. So in Africa, we check our certification before anything. Fortunately, maybe that's why we are not growing that fast. So if you're in Africa, I think you need to think about certifications. So there are so many certifications. This is how certification works in tech. I would like to go into tech more because that's what I'm so sure of. There are so many big tech companies that because they have the name, they come out with a certification and they roll it out and people write it and it becomes authentic because they're already there in that world. So there are some other tools that they own it themselves, which people are using. So they create a certification within the features of that tools also, and they make it, they generalize it, and people use it or people write it. Take for instance, in Power BI, there are a lot of Power BI certification at different levels. In AWS, which is a cloud platform, there are different levels of AWS practitioner, architecture. There are so many that they created it because they own that platform. And if you could write it, you might be able to do the job. Unfortunately, if you write it and you pass, and you pass on paper, and still unable to do the job, you might not get the job. You understand what I mean? Because in tech, we do different stages of interview. We do the proficiency, ask you, tell me about yourself, and all of those. They will give you a practical hands-on experience, life. Do it for us. Let's see. Then we are able to pass that. Then maybe they do the third one, maybe the culture and organization structure and all of that. Then you can pass and get the job. So what I'm saying is there are so many certifications. I'll just mention a few. Then we can read also and have it. But know the certification that works for your own kind of fit. So take for instance, we have Google Cloud Foundation. I think he has mentioned that, which is for AWS and all, because all the platforms are being hosted on cloud, which makes cloud very, very important. Then we have, that's for Google. Then we have AWS Cloud Practitioner. We have the architecture part of it. Then talking about Power BI is a tool. Then they have their own certification of different stages that you can read about. Then also the same Tableau. Tableau works like Power BI. It's a they are all visualization tools that we can use to visualize our data. Then there are so many. Then we have the AI. We have the Google Analytics. We have so many of it, even LinkedIn learning certifications that you can, there are so many you can learn and have it and all, but it's not enough, but it's still one of the things we need to learn as an African. You need to understand that as an African. So, and I believe all of these things will boost your portfolio, your CV, and you'll be able to grow in the tech world and in the AI generation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ibukun. Ms. Telmat, I would just like you to chip in less than a minute, still looking at certification, but from your aspect as an HR professional, from your aspect as from your own area of focus as an HR professional, just within few seconds, is there anything you would like to include?
Okay, just to say that certifications, of course, they are key, but at the same time, your experience is also equally key. So what I encourage people to do is, that's why on the basics, every Nigerian should at least have access to the university, right? If you attend your primary school, tertiary, university, and then get into the work field, have some experience, and then go for your certification, like you have a balance. We all know that globally, Nigerians compete in terms of talents because, these are the things we do. We don't only finish, university, we also try to get experience and also get certified. So yes, while skills are very important, but certification gives you an edge, especially if you're looking towards growing in that career, getting into a leadership space. So I always tell people, know when to go for what, right? When you've balanced out in your career, where you think you're making money enough to take care of yourself, you can explore the certifications that are relevant for you. For example, as an HR professional, If I'm looking to practice HR globally, I can't only be talking about my local certification. I would want to explore what are the global certification that will allow me have an edge. So at that point, we'll really think about that. So I'd say we'll learn, we put our experience into use. Most importantly, be sure that you have the technical know-how to get the job done. And then certifications, is just giving you an edge over other candidates. There are times that when you do interviews, everybody's good, right? And if I have 3 people who are good, I begin to look at what would give this one an edge over the other one. And when I look at it, some look at the experience, okay, they're good, the certificates, right? And then that could be your own competitive advantage. So that's what I would say, really.
All right, thank you very much. We have a question here, and okay, let's see if we can answer this within few seconds. Francis says, how do you learn to connect the various tools that you mentioned for data analytics? For example, Power BI, SPSS. I think this is it should be for
Yeah, that should be for
Dr.
me.
Ibuko. Yes.
Yes.
So just within a few seconds, please.
Okay, you want me to talk about it now, right?
Yes,
Okay.
very quickly.
All right. So to connect with that, if I get your question, that connect is not really clear. Maybe not the right term to use, but I would just think, how do you get them, or how do you link them? So I might be right with the tool. So or any of the tool. So if you want to link them, just like I said, all the learning platforms they are there. Then you can also learn with E86. I'm sure they are going to teach you that in data analysis training. Then also, if you want to learn online, you can also watch all the videos and or then connect, which is, I think, if you want to say connecting with those tools, some of those tools are free. They have the free version. If you are using if my Power BI is owned by Microsoft, so you need to have a Microsoft device like a Windows OS as your computer before you can use Power BI. You can download it from Microsoft Store. It is free until when you start to use some features, you won't have to pay. So also, you can also get those tools. If you are using MacBook, you might need to use tablet. Tablet works like Power BI, but it's not being owned by Microsoft. So you can use that. And so many of them, Python is free. That Python, SQL is free. There are so many variants of DBMS, database management system for SQL. You have TSQL, MySQL, PostgreSQL. There are so many. They are also free. You just get them, install them on your PC. As you are learning, you can practice. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Buku, for your response. So we've run out of time. We've exceeded our time, and I believe that our participants have had a lot to learn from this webinar session today. So what we're just going to do now is, on the final notes, I'm just going to go first panelists. We're just going to get final words from you. We're going to start with Engineer Ayotomiwa, then we'll come back to Dr. Ibuku, and then Ms. Telma. Final notes in regards to the topic that we've looked at today, empowering Africa's workforce for the AI era. What are your final notes to young professionals, aspiring individuals who are looking to come into AI? Engineer Ayotomiwa.
On the contrary, actually, to wrap this up, really, I'm thinking more about 3 shifts, and this is just from what I've learned, even from other speakers and things like that. Again, the onus is not, I don't think that there's ever been a lack of passion, from a lot of Nigerians, to be honest. I know that there is that TikTok epidemic, that Doctor has been talking about, and 100% I see that as well. Right. But again, a lot of shift has to happen. And the 3 big shifts that I'll think about is, number 1, training reforms. Right. I remember speaking to an intern who started a few months ago, and I was asking what languages they were learning at school. And he mentioned Fortran. To put things in perspective, they taught me Fortran. They taught my father Fortran. Do you get? So it's a complete waste of time. In tech, if they're teaching you the same thing they taught your father, I mean, it's ridiculous. So training reforms, even in university, in secondary school, and also even empowering people like EH6 to do what they do. You understand? It's important. Let government pay Like Doctor hinted, it's expensive. The trainings are expensive. The tools are expensive. You get. I remember, when I was at NIT, right? There was a young chap there who had been sponsored but didn't have a laptop, and I remember that he only had a flash drive, and he would borrow people's laptop or use the systems, at NIT so that shows a lot of resilience, right? But government has to come in, or people, philanthropists or whatever, have to come in to help with the training reform. So, number two is policy alignment. I haven't learned all of that. Do you understand? You can't then go and dumb it down, when, you want to do some things, So regulatory and all of that compliance has to happen, and it has to happen on a policy level. If you understand what I mean. And then the last thing is industry collaboration, right? At TCN, discos, private companies, HR companies, there has to be opportunities, for these young people to be able to collaborate, to learn, to intern, to volunteer, and things like that. These are the things, and for just to answer your own question, as well, is that AI, and there are a lot of tools right now. I mean, if you can be on TikTok, you can definitely be on YouTube. You can be on, and there are a lot of free resources. A lot of free resources. You don't have to. In fact, the Google certifications, AWS certifications, all of this, they're free classes you can take on YouTube on all of this. And just as Doctor said, maybe it's not the certification that matters the most. Maybe it's about knowing how to do the bloody job.
Do the job.
Do you understand? And look, two people walk in front of me, and I'm going to hire somebody. I'm going to hire the guy who can do the job, and not the guy who has the paperwork that says he can do the job. Right? Do you get what I'm saying? So if you can be on TikTok, you can definitely be on YouTube, and you can learn a skill. Do you get, and that'll be my own closing thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer Ayotomiwa. Over to you, Dr. Ibukun.
Thank you so much. I will firstly have to say I really, really thank you guys for organizing this. It's just a very big deal for someone like me. I like passing out the little that I have to people that also want to learn. I've been learning from the speakers, even from the audience, from their chats, contributions, and all. Thank you for bringing this out to Ross. So, and I think it's if a lot of organizations are doing something like this too, there'll be a lot of exposure and enlightenment on some basic things that we are ignorant of, and is really, really haunting us in Africa. So, I would like to say that adaptability is very important in this AI and tech generation, because things are changing so very fast. Take, for instance, I use Excel a lot and Power BI. And let me tell you, every 3 months, Excel and Power BI are changing. And I train students on those tools. Sometimes, if I didn't open it for 3 days or 3 days after they have launched it, the new versions or the new features, when I open it and I get to class, some things become so strange to me, and I feel like, are you kidding me? I was here on Friday. This is Monday. What is this meant for? And trust me, the first question you will get in class is, please, what is it? Even me, it is important to adapt so fast and be able to learn so fast. We can't catch up with everything, but there's a level at which you will know you're on top of your game as a tech expert, as an expert in your field. Just like the way Mr. Emma said, just talking about some AI tools. Have you already grabbed it? I already wrote it down. I'm going to explore that. I won't be going for interviews. I'll just be very overwhelming. Very overwhelming. Been there catching up with meetings. I'll just put you there, just get it sorted and give me everything and let me see the summary. Hopefully it should work for me. So I want to learn. So adaptability, you just need to do it. The first time I saw something like that, we were sourcing for funding for one of our projects, and after consulting or having a session with the funders, honestly, I knew we would not get it, because I saw the summary, I saw everything, and he was able to conclude that I didn't do well, and I felt like, oh, really? These are the things I would have done. So it is so so exponential and it could be very spontaneous too. So let's just get used to it. And I believe practicing and using it to be part of us. I said, but right now, organizations want you to use it and use it well. And right now, your CEO will tell you, have you checked it on ChatGPT if it's correct before sending it? It is now like that. There are also many platforms like Grammarly. Grammarly will correct your grammar even before ChatGPT came. So grammar, I'm not sure ChatGPT will not send Grammarly. We have another conversation later because we can do ChatGPT can do everything Grammarly is doing. So now there are so many tools you can explore and make your life better, but we still need to at least do some traditional things so that we don't forget about it when you are not going to have access to that AI tool at a particular point in time.
We should still be able to deliver.
Exactly. That's what I have to say in general. Thank you for this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ibukun. Over to Ms. Thelma, your final notes in few seconds.
Okay, I mean, it's just what we've all been saying, build one specialization, right? And then one broad skills. Today, we want you to be specialists, but at the same time, we want you to be able to do so many other things. However, make sure that your specialized area, that you're very strong technically in that way. So we call that the T-shaped model. So I think that everybody should have the capacity to do more than one thing as the world keeps evolving. If you have passion, like we say, passion no longer feeds you as much as you should. You can have passion for something, but that opportunity is not here. So you have to grow your skills to be versatile. Make sure you learn digital skills, as everything we've said today centers around digital capabilities, right? If you're not on LinkedIn, I think LinkedIn is where every professional should be. There are a lot of opportunities that you may also miss by. I think one of us spoke about TikTok. I actually use TikTok for learning more than the entertainment, right? TikTok is a very great resource if you're looking to research and get real time and like put a face to the information you want to get. It's a place that you can use more for the research that you need, other than just making the generic content. And don't forget to develop your emotional intelligence, because there are areas that AI cannot replace. AI cannot help you be adaptable, neither will it help you grow your emotional intelligence. So in all that you do in developing your technical skills, also make sure that you're growing your human and soft skills. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Thelma. Well said. It's been a wonderful time right here on E86 Tech Exchange webinar. And like you all have heard from our panelists, from Engineer Ayo Tomiwa, from Dr. Ibukun and Ms. Thelma, on behalf of E86, I want to say a very big thank you for being a part of this panelist. The three of you have been wonderful. In fact, if there's another word to use, I would use it. You've all been remarkable. You've been giving us insight on the topic and even beyond our expectations. I want to believe that, because I can see the comments here. So I want to believe that our participants have learned a lot from the three of you. So once again, thank you so much for being a part of the panelists for this webinar.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you
so much for having a good time. Bye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ibukun. Thank you so much, Ms. Thelma, for being here. So like you've all heard from our panelists, Engineer Yotomiwa said, if you can be on TikTok, then you can be on YouTube. So that means you need to fasten your seatbelt, start doing the needful. Okay, and Dr. Ibukun said adaptability is important in the AI era because things are changing, and I agree with that. You need to be able to adapt to changes and, to things that are springing forth and coming up day in, day out. And from Ms. Thelma, she said, be strong technically in your specialized area. So you need to get yourself equipped, which is part of what E86 is doing. So if you have skills that you want to learn, like it's been stated earlier on, we have the contact information right here in our chat box. You can reach out to us for the data literacy skill, data literacy and other kind of skills that you want to equip yourself with. We are here to make it possible for you. So do well to reach out to us via the contact information that we have in the chat box. So on this note, this is where we draw the curtain. On radio, we'll say drum rolls. You will hear all those jingles and all of that. So yeah, this is where we draw the curtain on today's session of Tech Exchange put together by E86. It's been a wonderful time, and it's been an honor for me to moderate this webinar. It is my humble self, Patricia Vasi, and I believe I've been doing so well. I believe we've been doing great with. Thank you so much, Engineer Ayatomiwa, for nodding in agreement. So till we come again, till we have another webinar coming up, please be on the lookout for E86. You can follow us across all our social handles. It is E86 Limited on, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Facebook, we are also on Twitter. So do well to contact us across our socials and as well via the contact information that we have in our chat box. Once again, thank you so very much for being a part of this webinar. We look forward to seeing you in the next one that will be coming very, very soon. So on that note, I'm saying goodbye to everyone. Goodbye, Engineer Ayatomiwa. Goodbye, everyone who has
Goodbye,
been a part of this.
everyone.
Have a
Bye.
lovely day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.